session that focuses on trends in food services. The Indian middle-class consumer is now more aware of global cultures and trends, thanks to electronic media, wider travel, and greater international exposure, and is now hungry for authentic cuisine, both international and Indian. There's been a continuous all-round growth across all sectors, but can we say the same for profitability? The challenges therefore lie in being innovative in terms of offerings while streamlining processes and strategies to achieve profitability. To make a presentation on this aspect, trends in food services, please put your hands together and welcome our expert, Mr. Anurag Mathur, partner, PwC.
Thank you for that. And after that very sparkling launch that we've just seen, what I have is really a quick walkthrough of some of the trends and pieces that we're really seeing in the food service business. Clearly, this is one of the trends that you should hope to find, the diversity of food, the growth of food, and of course the drive of local cuisine itself. If I can have the presentation, please. I think as the presentation comes on, I think fundamentally there are really 2 or 3 aspects that I want to speak about. One is that there is a clear long-term secular growth that the food service industry should see in India, driven by pure macroeconomic fundamentals. I think the industry is poised, the country is poised in a manner for seeing consumption spending grow, and that bears well for the food service industry. Thank you. So I think if you see the macroeconomic landscape right now, whether you look at from a standpoint of increasing GDP and household income, clearly significantly more disposable income and a higher propensity to spend. A lot has been spoken about the favorable demographic, but it benefits probably no one more than the food service or the food business. A working population constantly on the move, increasing very, very fast, almost 63.5 million entrants. 50% of our population is less than 27, right? A young population raring to go with a significant shortage of time, increasing time poverty, a very fast-growing number of working women in the population, changing the roles of gender significantly and moving forward. A very fast, paced urbanization, again, as compared to most parts of the world, and changing lifestyles. Again, driving experimentation, not just for newer cuisine, but within what they have every day. It is not just for a one-time experiment, but going out much more and looking at being more exposed, being more aware, and driving towards that. Of course, a very fast-paced internet patronization. I think probably one of the fastest growth rates in the company, and as the gentleman before we mentioned, we are already by 2020 looking at 2 times the absolute number of people on the internet as the US. Already 100 million plus smartphone users, growing fast, very fast social media penetration. I think we've seen a fair mix of these, which is again driving a large amount of connectedness. And in traditional businesses or traditional industries like food, where there is a significant amount of look and feel, a hard presence, also it is driving a significant digital presence. And we'll talk about that a little more. Also, along with all of these, as the incomes rise, as the move towards urbanization and awareness comes in, there is also a significant focus on health and wellness. It's not that these 67 million diabetic and the 30 million obese didn't exist earlier. We have been the diabetic capital of the world for a fairly long time. The awareness of that, however, has come out very, very significantly, and people are looking to know what they are eating, how they are eating, not just in ingredients, but in finished food, in packaged food. So there is a large consciousness of or a need for awareness. So I think within these, there is, clearly you see some behavior changes, some consumption changes, willing to try new options, try new cuisines. We'll eat out more often, simply lack of time. We'll eat in more often from outside. There is a growing market for home delivery and takeaway, growing very, very fast. The social connectedness is making sure we share food pictures, we share reviews. We want to be connected at all times. We want to make sure that people know what we are doing, what we are trying, what we are eating. And the need for awareness will also drive the need to buy branded, the need to know ingredients. So there is the organized food and food service market, in my mind, therefore, is poised for long-term secular growth. The current size of the business, and these are largely NRAI figures, 48 million, expected to grow to about 78 million by 2020. Fast growth on the casual dining and QSR segment. I can't say the same right now for same-store growths for a lot of people. Same-store growths have been struggling for most people. The growths have been coming largely on the back of expansion, geographic expansion, going into new terrains, going into new markets. But if you look at the industry as a whole, there is growth. And this is happening not just in the food service business, but many affiliated food, packaged food, FMCG. There are newer and newer and newer entrants. Consumption spending on one hand is growing. At the same time, some of the traditional players are struggling to say, where is the growth? It is, and as food price inflation comes down, the volume growths have really taken on a better spin. The numbers have been better for most, be it packaged food companies, be it food service companies. However, the pricing has not really been there. So value growths have been struggling to keep on track with what they were or what they're expected to, especially on the same store front. But this is more of, I would say, the seeds of growth are pretty much back as far as what we are seeing, and there will be a continued expansion on this side. Especially on the organized side, I think the business is still very, very unorganized. There is a very large chunk, almost 70%, and these are frankly all estimates, because there is a very large unorganized market out there for food service, which will continue to get more organized as people demand more branded, demand more hygienic, demand more safe. It will continue to get organized. And I'll talk about some of the trends within this space of how it gets organized. One of the sort of segments in this, which is really the fast casual, which is something I see could surprise and could come out actually faster than some of the others, probably even ahead of the QSRs and the cafes as it grows. There is a lot more traction that we're seeing in terms of how that is moving, and on the restaurant side, and that will be a segment to look out for over the next couple of years. I think with the increased attractiveness, with the growth that is pending in the sector, there has also been a heightened amount of deal activity. Clearly, there is an interest from multiple sectors. There is a significant amount of private equity and venture capital that is going in. The number of deals over the last 5 years has only been sort of there or increasing, 10, 12, 15 deals last year, growing. The interesting thing to see also is the chart on the lower left, is that 5 years back, the investments were really going all into the restaurant business. But what you see now is almost a 50-50 between food technology and the restaurant business, which is a significant shift in this landscape. That there is, so yes, food service is in demand, food growth, organized food markets are in demand, but who are the right guys to service that demand, and who will really build behind? Can the food tech guys organize the unorganized and really build behind a much faster, bigger, profitable business as compared to the restaurant businesses, which have struggled to organize and build chains over a period of time? It's a large landscape we are talking about. Well, much in line with a lot of other retail, it's no surprise that technology companies have seen the faster share and the bigger share of money over the last couple of years. So, that said, what are really some of the big trends we see moving in that are influencing the business and that will continue to drive as well as challenge the business to some extent? I think I'll talk about either of these, but just as a token, one, there is a big trend towards the whole local cuisine, or which is something that has been in play. I think interestingly what we see across the world is that it is the cuisine of the country. It is the local cuisine, different parts of the country, that starts to get organized, that starts to get served up, that starts to get packaged. However, in India, if you see, the packaged food market specifically has been dominated largely by international cuisine and much less by local cuisine. We haven't gone ahead and packaged our rotis and packaged our dals as yet much. It is beginning to happen, but the packaged food is moving down that path of what we consume, getting packaged, getting more convenient, getting more indulgent as well at the same time. And Indians clearly have different food habits. We want hot food, we want fresh food. There is a lot that can be said about Indian food habits. So that will continue to drive. The second big trend that I want to really speak about is the we see a big opportunity in the whole B2B food service market. The merging of packaged food with the food service industry in some form or shape. And retail and hospitality will drive this B2B food service very, very quickly. The growth in organized retail, the growth in hospitality, the number of new rooms coming up and the new hotels coming up, the entire unorganized business, talk about that. Third, I think food tech is trying to do a somewhat bewildering job of trying to organize the unorganized, not just in terms of restaurants and food businesses, but even home chefs. Talk about that a little bit. Digital, clearly, no conversation is complete without digital. There is a very large aspect of how digital is recrafting the food service experience, both on-site as well as off-site, from an engagement standpoint. The traditional service models, the omni-channel of food service will come to be, and you will need to look at, and the speaker before me eloquently spoke about how omni-channel is clearly a more superior model and build around, and companies will need to be prepared for it. Health and wellness, again, will manifest itself in many ways in the food service business, and you need to be prepared for it. I think analytics, again, as a trend spoken about, but I would still say as we interact with more and more companies, we don't really see a lot of people exploiting it to the fullest. The ones who are clearly seeing better margins, seeing better propensity to drive consumer growth, and I would say significantly better same-store growth. It is one of the prime drivers, in my view, of same-store growth at the moment. Of course, limited cold chain network, somewhat developing last mile infrastructure. I think both cold chain as well as last mile will be critical drivers of growth for the industry. On the last mile front, there has been a lot of action with the e-commerce players and the service guys trying to build up a last mile infrastructure, and therefore the entire delivery market seeing some boost with that. Cold chain, I would still say somewhat far. We are still greater demand than supply, and the costs therefore remain at a per unit level where the sustenance still needs to build. And the last but not the least, I think food safety standardization will be a key area to look out for over the next couple of years, both with recent events, growth on that side, as well as this is, whether you look at standardization of processes, whether you look at replicability of quality, that has been one of the big reasons why restaurants have not been able to, or food service companies have not been able to really scale up and multiply themselves over the years. So just talking about some of these trends, I think Indian cuisine, I say, will continue to dominate in some form or shape. That's not saying international cuisine is not growing. The need to experiment is not growing. Yes, it is. It will have its fair share, and there will be bits of growth, but it's from a smaller base. Indian cuisine or local cuisine will continue to dominate in some form or shape. We have seen the popularity of the Haldirams and the Bikaner Walas moving into the QSR space and building up and well established into that space. Indian dishes, significant space in leading restaurants in both domestic as well as localization on the international restaurant formats. We believe there'll be a much more sort of likelihood of that, or the growth of that. And when I say Indian cuisine, it's not just, one is of course Indian flavors, but even options for, again, remember we are a largely vegetarian population, and when I say largely vegetarian, not from the standpoint that as percentage we are largely vegetarian, but if you look at our meal parts in a week, we primarily eat vegetarian food. The way we eat non-vegetarian is also different from how the rest of the world eats it, and therefore there is a need for more parts of vegetarian food, and there will be innovation on that front as well, that we see that a number of restaurants are going down, a number of food service companies are going down the path of, and we will see much more in that space. Well, menu innovations, it's again, as I said, on the Indian side, there are restaurants like Indian Accent or Fuzzy Cafe which have reopened the whole Indian cuisine space even for the experimental consumer, and down that path. But you will see this whole, so there is a desire to experiment. At the same time, there is a desire to have comfort. So you would like to see your own food, you would like to see things that you're familiar with served up in different ways, and that is something we feel will drive a lot of menu innovation as well in the food service space. And as I said, the lifestyle demands will continue to drive the need for quick service Indian food. I think it is still The quick service restaurants, the fast foods are still very much focused on the Indian. There are on the sort of foreign cuisine. There are a few chains that have gone down the Indian path. Some have met with success, some with relatively mixed success. But whether you look at it from the standpoint of a quick serve biryani in 45 variants, or whether you look at vada pavs and samosas, we will see a lot more of the fast food pieces. The other interesting thing to note is, even from a deal standpoint, that there is a large chunk of the deals that you see in the space have actually happened in Indian food domain, whether it's food tech. So there is either food tech or there is a lot of Indian food domain. So that is where the money is going. And the other big trends I spoke about, feel very passionately that there is a very, very large chunk of unorganized food service outlets out there. So there are, so one look at it from a hotel standpoint, right? There are almost 8,000 plus uncategorized hotels in India which don't fall into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star category, which potentially have a kitchen, but not really. Do they really want to have a kitchen? Maybe not. There are 25,000 plus what I call limited range sweet shops and bakeries. These are guys who have probably 50 to 100 SKUs of what they make at best, versus if you look at a Haldiram or a Bikaner Wala, when you look at their sweet range or their ethnic snack range, you'll probably find 750 to 1,000 SKUs. So do they want to sell these SKUs? Yes. Do they have the competence with their local chefs to create these SKUs? No, they don't. And do they have, are they sitting in populous markets? Are they sitting in markets? And they are sitting in prime localities, in A-class localities where you have, the same geography serves up the best of packaged food. However, so if you, for the sake of argument, take, for the one of you who are familiar with Delhi, let's say Lodi Colony as a market, right? I mean, it is a market which surrounds Jobag. It has a fair number of Meherchand Khanna market. It is a sort of A-class market. If you walk around the market, you'll see 10 or 12 sort of sweet shops, bakeries that have these limited range. Do they have the customer to sell products at 50 rupees, at 75 rupees, at 100 rupees? Very much. Do they want to sell things like a balu shahi or a matar samosa or a mushroom croissant? Yes, very much. But they don't have the capability with those chefs, those locals, to get them in today. The opportunity is ripe for somebody to really build the supply chain around it, do the B2B service, take end-to-end ownership for it. And not just for these, but also, as I said, for where kitchens are not needed. The 8,000 uncategorized hotels. I mean, Siddharth was here a while ago. I'm sure he would love if somebody can organize the entire coffee day food business and say that, we will supply to you in every store and be your food partner. There is, and similar for a lot of other cafes that will, see the growth. So that is one aspect of the B2B, which is the B2B2C, and this has the potential to build your brand as well, because you could actually go down with the branded offering in this path. The other that we see is really what I feel will grow is also the ready-to-use intermediaries. As these mid-market chains start to get more organized, there is a, the food costs sort of still form a large chunk. Any percentage shave off on that is healthy. The need for food safety regulation will drive people towards using more and more packaged food into their kitchens, and at the back end of it will get driven. They will start to use more and more vending options, for the lack of another. Today, vending is restricted to potentially coffee, tea, and a few other options of colas and a few cold beverages. But the vending business could see a significant growth in a lot more of these. I mean, classically, restaurants like Chili's globally has gone into the concept of Chili's at home, launched a range of products that they are doing in my B2B2C kind of model, selling in supermarkets. There is, the supermarkets, the retail, the organized retail is looking for partners to say that, can we, ready to eat in India, will it be packaged? Hard bet. Can it be fresh and served and every day, and can it grow? Well, I would bet on that. So that is something that, as a market opening up, and you should see a lot more traction in that space. I mean, simply somebody going down to Oyo Rooms and saying you have 30,000 rooms, these many partnerships, what if we are your food partner? Go to all of those hotels that Oyo Rooms is working with potentially don't have kitchens. Okay, moving on from B2B to into the more food tech domain, which has seen a lot more action in the last couple of years. On one side, there is the almost $7 billion food delivery market in India, growing fast. Online ordering there has almost become $500 million and growing. There is on one side players who are, like Food Panda, Eatiny, all which are restaurant aggregators trying to build behind and give access to a lot more. There's players like Zomato. Menu discovery is clearly a big item that people are looking at, and we talk about a little bit in digital. If you look at what people are doing, what you see on the left-hand side corner, and this is a global research that we carried out last year, mostly across US and Europe, but the idea of it is that consumers are looking at digital and looking at digital, not just, viewing menus is number one. So discovering food is clearly a very big activity, and that is where the food tech guys are really coming into play in a very, very significant shape or form. On one hand, of course, discovery. On the other hand, they're trying to solve the age-old problem of how do you get the delivery going at a price that is profitable? How do you aggregate? How do you deliver and build it up in a manner that is profitable? And one, they have access to a large pool of small restaurants and home chefs, which, as far as I'm seeing, tends to drive higher gross margins for these players as compared to what a lot of other standalone businesses are able to do, almost in the region of package gross margins, or maybe higher actually. And and on the other hand, there is a drive towards building up innovative delivery models, building up innovative packaging options, because as the delivery goes, a significant part of it, and there will be a trend towards building packaging. What you see here from Chai Point or the Chai Flask is one of those innovations down that path, which is clearly revolutionized the way I would say that we serve tea, or is revolutionizing the way that we serve tea in the country. I mean, the other option to this earlier, and you would have all seen in some form or shape, used to be a thermos or a polythene bag actually to serve tea in most parts of the country. So these are things that will change. At the same time, they're building upon the entire trend of social, the review and rating on social media, driving trials for the next new thing. As the need for experiment goes, so does the need for discovery, so does the need for where does an experiment come from, and that is something that the food tech guys are latching upon. There is, you can talk about here companies like Munchery, globally called the Uber of the food business in some form or shape, has aggregated home chefs and built up a very large platform of home chefs, taking them out to delivery. Companies like Bite Club in India or Hola Chef doing somewhat similar activities. And as you see this on the social side, there is a lot more food tech, I would say, coming also in terms of recipe forward companies. If you look at simply Google AdWords or Google Talks, you will see the number of searches that happen for recipes, and you can choose any particular cuisine. You can choose you can, for the sake of argument, you can choose biryani, and you will probably get 100 million plus searches in a year on recipes of biryani. And that recipe forward is something that a lot of food tech companies are trying to go after and build behind, and that is something we've seen globally. We see will get into integrating from recipe downward into food service and into really building towards the business itself. Moving from there into the entire digital space, I think digital, as I said, the big trend we see in digital, and it's been spoken about for the last several years. It is now very much in our face. It is something that's happening on the ground. It is the penetration of it that is rising dramatically. The spend percentages on digital are moving up very, very fast for food services businesses, of course, for packaged food businesses as well. The large part of it is still on online engagement, offline purchase. So it is not so much on what I would call purely e-commerce. Yes, the food tech companies are there, but there is a lot more investment that will happen on the side of online engagement, offline purchase. Some of the places where you're seeing more interactions and more digital coming on site is the entire ordering space. So you see in-house digital engagement gaining traction, ordering kiosks in many restaurants, which drive the engagement, drive the discussion, drive the ability to customize at that point. There is a trend globally of order ahead, which will, through your mobile phones, through the apps, to try and, as you move towards booking, as you move towards reservation, trying to order ahead, build that, pay online. Loyalty is again something that I would say very few are exploiting very well in the food service space, but that is something that we see will build going forward. Again, some of the companies that we've seen in the last 2 years maintain 20% plus same-store growth have been companies that have actually built and used loyalty along with analytics very, very significantly to drive home their best customers, to get repeats out of them, to sort of build up on the back of their best customers in a local geography. And that is, loyalty is a piece that we feel will grow. And it is getting integrated more and more with the point of sale. It is getting integrated with payment platforms. It is, offering a sort of suite of a complete solution around it that is getting built. And, as I referred to earlier, the entire, you see, there is a wide gamut of activities that, as the consumer journey changes, even for food service, there is a wide gamut of activities that the consumer is doing on the digital front before walking into a restaurant. Be it viewing menus, be it looking up locations, be it simply seeing reviews, how easy, how difficult it is, ordering from a restaurant's website in a lot of cases, but reading online reviews, using rewards, special deals. There is a lot more adjunct coupon sites that have come into play and that are sort of being used by the industry and being used by consumers. Making reservations, looking up nutrition information, again, a large part of what you see in the health and wellness side, but the desire for knowledge on what, where, how is just growing, and that gets you into a space where digital spends on the online engagement side will only tend to grow over the next couple of years. And of course, you have guys like Beer Cafe who have digitally redeemable loyalty points. You can do it on the fly. There is a lot more integration of some of these kind of activities. The Pizza Boys who actually have a significant share of their business coming from e-commerce already, and driving through the apps to get their business traction up. So the question really of trend on the traditional food service model becomes that, on one hand, you have food tech, you have aggregators, you have your own business. So there will be breakages along each of these paths, right? So to me, the omni-channel of food service retail is really the ability to manage all of these, to be able to offer the consumer the choice to come through any of these channels or parts and pieces and come down that path. When we talk about menu innovation, I mean, a lot of the digital will actually evolve or is already evolving to say that, okay, now that I have the menu here in front of me, I have a need for health and wellness, I have a need for, eating what I want. You've given it to me, why can't I customize it? And today, if you look at a pizza app and walk through it, you will possibly go through not 3 steps of ordering, but possibly 7 or 8, because you want to choose a wheat-based crust, you want to choose a specific type of cheese, you want to choose, so those are customizations options that are, getting enabled. And what that enables you also is a new range of pricing, a new range of margins, and that is something to think about that, how can you, with your existing ingredients and existing services, offer this on digital menus. And this is true not just for restaurants businesses, but also food services businesses offering services to restaurants or to QSRs and cafes and chains. They are the entire CRM connect between the two, the ability to order fast, the ability to order rapidly by knowing your customer, being able to trade up is on their, knowing their menu is something that will get built more and more. Menu transparency, again, be it from a calorie perspective, be it from, I wouldn't say that sourcing as yet or organic is as yet a very, very large trend in India that people want to see. Sustainable sourcing is not something that consumers, I would say, in India are yet demanding, but it is something that we see will become important over a period of time. And, companies are going down that path already, but it is something that consumers will start to demand over a period of time. As yet, we see it's not as big a trend in India as it is globally. Again, dynamic ordering, simply the difference of, people want it at the counter, including, you will see some of the online players, the food tech companies trying to put up counters in places to say that, here's a takeaway place for you, we'll aggregate your orders, give it to you here in an office block, please pick it up from here. Kind of counter service, as well as, of course, traditional counter service, in-store tablets, mobiles, ordering ahead, the social ordering, getting people to choose what you should have today and order, drive-throughs. So it is the idea is the multiplicity of these options will drive, what is the omni-channel and the preparedness for a service model. Yeah. So I think that is really the core to these. Similarly, on the payment side, wallets, redemption, card-based. So it is the multiplicity of these offerings that food service players need to be prepared for. That will really drive this whole omni-channel. And one of the points you talk about is also catering. There's a large, growing, organized business of catering globally, which in India has still been somewhat limited. This is something that we're seeing, whether it's on the corporate, events-based, personal front. It will grow. One, with specialized companies entering the space in catering. Two, for restaurants and food service, including cafes and QSRs, having to prepare for this space in a lot of form or shape. Health and wellness, I think I've spoken about. Nutrition, menu labeling, the whole low-calorie, the number of runners in this country, and I was trying to find numbers, but I found some very, very diverse numbers, so I didn't put them up. But there is a very, very large growth in, if you see the marathons month after month, you will get a sense of what I'm talking about. But there is a very, very large manifestation of the health behavior, especially in the social context, and that is where the whole food service space comes into being. So wanting to know what you're eating, wanting to have the right ingredients, be it simply superfoods or whole grains or antioxidants, and moving towards that, which will result eventually in sort of highly customized menus. So we'll go down that path. And there are restaurants specifically that are coming around this space, like the Yoga House or the Organic Express. Yeah. I think just two last points, given the time, I'll make quickly. One is around analytics. It will continue to drive. Well, I would say it will be used significantly more to drive profitability and same-store growth, unlocking pricing potential with dynamic customized prices. You have seen the likes of the Bar Stock Exchange. Globally, there is companies like TasteBud, which allow you to offer deals, buy at a certain time, certain price. So you see surge pricing in food, so to say, in form of shape. Menu customizations by day part, customer-based assortments, which again, coupled with loyalty, can be driven and drive up a lot. GST would drive a significant need for revisiting sourcing and pricing both. On one hand, the tax structure itself will drive you towards that. On the other hand, literally every procurement contract will have to be reopened, redone, and sort of put into the system to make sure that even to retain the price that you have from your suppliers today. So it will drive a large change. Limited cold chain, I think again, this is something that we've spoken about, but cold chain continues to be a challenge. There is new players coming into the space. There is growth on that front. Government initiatives are supporting it, but this is something we see will need to drive a lot more supply to get the unit economics better and to make sure there is much faster usage and sustainability around this. And I think the last point, which I'll leave on, is the whole area of food safety. I think be it traceability, I mean, what we've seen with recent events as well, a significant strengthening of the FSSAI, the replicability of food traceability, the standardization of processes, simply being able to take what you do in one restaurant well to another and another. The QSRs and the cafes have got it going to some extent, but doing this, one, with Indian food, and two, doing it in the casual and the fine dine space is something that will be a bigger and bigger need as we go, and which is where a lot of the B2B and the manufacturing and the RTE will come into play as well. So that is broadly the trends really that I had. Happy to take any questions at
No, we don't
time,
have
given
any
that
time for questions. We're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.